Cold Creek Vineyard is in Washington State. It's located about 38 miles east of Yakima. It's below the Columbia River, just below the Wahluke Slope. We're in a hot region, so we see a lot of heat units here. It's one of the warmest vineyards in the state. It's what helps make Cold Creek what it is.
Cold Creek Vineyard actually started as a big hay field, and then it was purchased by St. Michel Vintners in 1973, and planting started then. And very soon after that, the 500 acres that were planted basically doubled the size of wine grapes in the state of Washington.
In the mid-70s, when a lot of this vineyard was planted, we were still learning about what varieties were going to grow well in what regions, which is why we have Riesling next to Chard, next to Cabernet, next to Merlot, next to Syrah, next to Cabernet Franc. We even have Muscat here at Cold Creek. So it really is a wide variety of fruit. And back then, again, it was a trial.
Walt Clore was the father of Washington wine, and he did early vineyard experiments all over the state and identified the Cold Creek Valley as one of the great prospects for growing grapes, and worked with our early executives to make decisions on purchasing this property and developing the vineyard.
Cold Creek Vineyard this year is 40 years old. With that, we have some older vines here. The first one's planted in 1973. With the combination of the heat, the gravelly soils, the ability to control our water, that's what lends itself to the rich Cold Creek fruit. And so we have a lot of intense flavor gathered in the fruit because of the way that we can control the environment.
Now, the wines here at Cold Creek, if I had to typify a style, almost regardless of variety, it would be power and concentration and big shoulders, you might say, especially with the red. We start at the very top every year, and those two tiers at the top would be our Artist Series Meritage Red and our Ethos tier. And invariably, Cold Creek is always in those wines, whether it be Cabernet, Merlot, or even Chardonnay. Cold Creek makes up a part of those blends.
We have such a unique opportunity here at this site to make a custom and handcrafted wine that goes into the Cold Creek label. It's an amazing opportunity in the sense that, you know, the winemakers love to work with it, and we love capturing all the goodness that's here at Cold Creek.
The Cold Creek Vineyard has been a lifelong experience for me since I started with the company. Watching it blossom from a great place to grow and develop into a world-class vineyard with new selections of great varieties. It's been truly exciting, and I think that the best is yet to come.
Eroica has set the benchmark for American luxury Riesling, a labor of love for the renowned partnership of Dr. Lozen Estate of Germany and Chateau Saint Michel that began in 1999. Eroica is an intermingling of old world insight and technique, combined with new world vineyards and innovation.
The whole goal is to get the best grapes, the best possible grapes for Eroica. And you know what I always say, Riesling, it's all about acidity, acidity, acidity. And a wine with high acidity and low pH usually age very well. So you have to look for sites which brings you the acidity. And this is usually cooler sites. In this case, we have been looking for higher elevation.
And what we look for with Washington State for making this wine is we look for vineyards and sites that give us this level of minerality, of this limey white peach style with this higher acidity and lower pH. And here we are at beautiful Zilla Ranch. As we sit up here at 1,500 feet on Halloween night to show the hang time of Riesling, our high elevation sites, and the style of fruit we're looking for, it really all comes together right here. So what we look for now in the grapes is not as much exposure, but a little bit more coverage. We actually look at the fruit zone here. See, there's fruit underneath here, but we actually want a little more leaf coverage so you don't have as much direct sunlight during the day. And believe it or not, we actually look for a slightly larger crop load on some of these vines too. It slows down the ripening process. So the more fruit you have to hang, the slower the ripening, the slower the sugaring up, okay, and therefore you get that longer hang time into October. We're going to pick these, we're going to send them to the winery in Woodinville, Washington, and we're going to ferment them. And then what happens in about 6 weeks from now, Ernie Lozen's going to come over and taste the wines with the winemaking team in Woodinville. And we'll have the entire cellar to look at and taste and choose from. We'll have over 75 tanks of Riesling from all different sites in Washington State and all different residual sugar levels. So when he comes,
there's a palette of tanks and a palette of styles to choose from. So we'll taste through every tank of wine, and we'll taste and get down to maybe the top 10 or 12 vineyards of the year and styles that we like. And then we physically will put together the blends with the winemaking team in the cellar to come up with just that perfect blend to make with the Eroica. It takes about 3 days to make the blend.
So here's to a friendship, and here's to great wine.
To great Rieslings.
Cheers.
And there's definitely more to come. Here we are.
Well, the style of wine kind of comes from one of Ernst's wines that he makes in Germany. He calls it his gold capsule.
The idea of the Eroica Gold is a little bit in the tradition what we do, what we call Auslese Goldkapsel.
Well, there are two vineyards that the blend for the Eroica Gold came from. It's the Viewcrest Vineyard in the Yakima Valley, which is one of the tried and true traditional vineyards for the Eroica blend. Beautiful acid, beautiful mineral, more lemon lime. And then we took the botrytis element here from our Horse Heaven Vineyard here in the Horse Heaven Hills AVA.
Well, what I learned when I came here the first time, 99, you know, that you guys, especially with the vineyards, which are close to the Columbia River, have the great chance to create noble rot, yeah?
Well, botrytis, or we also call it the noble rot, is literally just a mold that infects the fruit later in the season, and it shrivels up the grapes. And so what you end up with are very concentrated grapes, because what happens is the botrytis literally desiccates the fruit, takes all the moisture out, so it makes it look almost like raisins, okay? And so because of that, you get the flavor of the concentration, but the botrytis itself also lends flavors and complexities all by itself. And I would describe those more like kind of orange marmalade, rich honey kind of qualities that you add on top of the beautiful acidity.
We want to have a delicate, noble sweet wine with nice acidity, with elegance, with finesse. And I think that works very well into the Eroica family, because Eroica itself is a more on the drier side. I think you have to taste something like that. You will be immediately convinced with it, you know?
Welcome to my office. I'm Gary Horner, winemaker for Erath's Winery. We're standing in Prince Hill Vineyard, one of Dick Erath's vineyards. Dick, who originally came to Oregon back in 1967 to seek the Holy Grail, as they say, to find the home for Pinot Noir in the United States. Well, I think Dick Erath and I were meant to be together at some point in time. The wines that Dick Erath made tended to be wines that were more of an elegant style, very soft and full of fruit and bright fresh fruits, a nice long length of flavor, a nice lift of acidity, what we nowadays refer to as a classic Oregon vintage. And those were the wines that I fell in love with. Finally, we were able to come together, and I was allowed to continue to make wine in a style that I loved, and also in a style that really, I think, helped put Oregon on the map.
What I was impressed about the wines was really the fact the wines produced here, in my opinion, were in a way rather similar to the old world wines in terms of style, elegance.
For over 26 generations, the Antinori family has been making wine in Italy.
I felt at home here. We got in touch with Chateau Saint-Michel. We started to discuss together about the wines, the quality, the potential.
I see the vision for Col Solari as the finest expression of a blended red wine in Washington, and the very deliberate attempt to produce wines from Red Mountain that have both power and intensity. We have taken our time in the development of Col Solari to make it just right. And part of that process was looking for the ideal site for the estate vineyard and winery. We settled on Red Mountain, which is the smallest AVA and is a site that is particularly suited to bold wines, but ones that also have finesse. And I think that's what we've captured with Col Solari there.
Winemaker Darrell Allwine began working for Col Solari in 2003. He helped to oversee the planting of the estate vineyard, which was designed with the Antinoris using their experience in Tuscany. The vineyard is densely planted with up to 2,000 vines per acre, so that each vine carries less fruit, concentrating the flavors. The vineyard's radial pattern and site orientation assure uniform ripening and fruit quality.
The soil here on Red Mountain is really phenomenal for the quality of fruit that we're trying to produce here. It's sandy loam, very poor in nutrients. It has a high calcium carbonate level, high pH, so the roots really struggle to get the moisture and nutrients out of the soil. Perfect.
Darrell collaborates closely with Renzo Cotarella, the chief enologist for Antinori Estates in Italy. Working together with a shared vision and collective experience, their mission is to produce Washington State's premier Cabernet Sauvignon-based wine, a wine that showcases the true essence of Red Mountain's terroir while maintaining an elegance typical of Tuscany.
And here's to a partnership that hopefully will continue for the next 26 generations. Cheers.
Good, cheers.
The history of Stag's Leap Wine Cellars is really special here. This property has really made California wines, Napa wines around the world. It set a reputation for the finest wines when it won the Judgment of Paris in 1976 with the 1973 SLV Cabernet. And today, people around the world look to Stag's Leap Wine Cellars. The opportunity to be involved with Stag's Leap Wine Cellars was really epic for Saint-Michel Wine Estates. We looked at the property and said that we could be part of history.
The vision is to continue to produce top wines with terroir character, so wine that reflects the climate, the soil, also the tradition, the influence of people. And the consequence of all that is to be able to produce wines with a personality.
We have a wonderful relationship with Marchesi Antinori and the Antinori family. Our two companies bring talent, energy, passion, and a lot of excitement for this wonderful historic property.
We are totally committed to ensuring that Stag's Leap Wine Cellars continues to be what it has always been, so one of America's benchmark wineries.
The 2008 vintage is very exciting for us. It's the first vintage that we own the property from bud break all the way to the bottle.
2008 vintage is a very special vintage for me. It doesn't represent a drastic change compared to the previous vintages, but an evolution. What I like in particular of 2008 is the purity of fruit, the freshness of the wine, and obviously then the wines have the typical characteristic of the wines produced here, which are balance and elegance and class.